The mighty Iridian Empire enslaved species, conquered galaxies and fed warriors to arena beasts, but bringing humans into the cages was their greatest, bloodiest mistake. Emperor Cygnus of Iridia shifted in his arena throne, obsidian armor scraping against the chitin of his exoskeleton. His 4 insectoid eyes narrowed as gladiators of various enslaved races battled in the pits below. Laser blades sliced into flesh, bones snapped. Shrill alien cries echoed over the spectators' cheers. Blood soaked the sands. Nothing remarkable until Cygnus saw the arena master lead in a new fighter, a lean, scarred, flat-faced mammalian creature called Human. Samuel Taylor Marsoc, abducted by slaver scum on a classified op. Now this shit-kicking Marine had to carve through God knows what alien freak shows to survive in this buzzing hellpit of a coliseum. He gripped a chainsword, sizing up the 4-armed reptilian behemoth in the opposite cage. Nasty fucker. Sam pictured burying the whirring adamantium teeth in that scaly throat, painting the sand red, making these roach people regret not picking an easier match for his first fight. Well, they'd learn. Because if Samuel wanted to live to kick E.T.'s ass and get back to Earth, he'd need to turn this arena into an alien butcher shop. The cages opened, crowds screeched. The massive reptile barreled at Samuel, swinging 4 swords, murder in its eyes. Time to show these slaving shit-stains what a human could do, or die messy on foreign sand. Samuel charged to meet his foe head-on, chainsword revving, adrenaline surging. One man against nightmares. If he lost, he'd be just another bloody smear for the Iridians' sick entertainment. But if Samuel won, if he could slay every gruesome thing they threw at him, humanity might just stand a chance after all. Samuel stood over the slain 4-armed reptilian, his chainsword purring and dripping viscera onto the blood-stained arena sands. The crowds roared, stomping and screeching at the gory spectacle of the human's victory. Samuel felt no pride in this butchery, only disgust and a cold fury that he channeled into determination to survive this hellish captivity. Suddenly, a dozen Iridian guards marched into the arena, plasma rifles leveled at Samuel. He tensed, ready for a fight, but they merely formed an escort around him. The guards parted to allow a regally dressed Iridian to approach, larger than the others, with an ornate golden crest upon his head. Emperor Cygnus himself. "You fought well, Human," Cygnus said, his voice a rasping buzz. "Come with me, we have much to discuss." With rifle barrels at his back, Samuel had no choice but to follow the Emperor out of the arena and into the bowels of the Colosseum. They walked through winding corridors until Cygnus led them into a large chamber adorned with intricate carvings and advanced technology. Samuel realized these must be the Emperor's private quarters. Cygnus waved the guards away and turned to Samuel, compound eyes glittering. "I have studied your species. Your capacity for violence is only matched by your drive to innovate, to reshape the universe around you. Useful traits, rare traits." "What do you want?" Samuel spat. "Your loyalty, your service. I will appoint you a commander to train my warriors in your tactics, teach us to fight like humans, and I will spare your world from conquest." Samuel's mind reeled. To protect Earth but doom other worlds to suffer under Iridian oppression, to serve this alien tyrant in the hope of saving his species. Revulsion warred with grim necessity in his gut. "Fine," he growled, "I'll do it. But if you break your word, if you threaten Earth—" "So you have my oath," Cygnus said. "Now come, meet your new soldiers." The Emperor led Samuel to a training ground where ranks of Iridian warriors stood at attention. As Samuel surveyed their disciplined stances and high-tech weapons, he realized the monumental task before him and the deadly risks of teaching these conquerors to fight like humans. But Samuel had no choice. He stepped forward to address the assembled warriors, forcing down his disgust to speak in a voice hard as iron. "Listen up. I'm your new commander. Today, your real training begins." As the days wore on and Samuel drilled the Iridian warriors, integrating human tactics and strategy into their regimen, he learned more about their society's grim realities. The lower castes, it seemed, lived in squalor and servitude, chafing under the Emperor's rule. Quiet whispers spoke of rebellion, of a growing resistance movement that dreamed of overthrowing Cygnus. Samuel saw an opportunity. During training, he took note of two Iridians who seemed discontent with the status quo: Zarax, an engineering prodigy, and Theron, the most skilled fighter of the bunch. Samuel approached them cautiously, building trust through subtle hints and coded phrases. In time, they confirmed their allegiance to the rebellion and their desire to end Cygnus's tyranny. Together, the three began to scheme and plot, discussing how to sabotage the Emperor's regime from within. Samuel started funneling sensitive military information to the rebels, while Zarax worked on weakening key infrastructure. Theron recruited more warriors to their cause, building a clandestine army right under Cygnus's nose. But just as their plans began to take shape, an unexpected development shook the galaxy. The sudden arrival of the Quarian Dominion, a rival empire seeking to challenge Iridia's supremacy. Samuel realized that this new threat could either aid their coup or doom it entirely. He would need to tread carefully, navigating a precarious web of alliances and betrayals if humanity was to survive the coming storm. As the Quarian warships tore through the void, their weapons primed and aimed at the heart of the Iridian Empire, Emperor Cygnus summoned Samuel to the war room. "Commander," Cygnus rasped, "I am sending you and your elite force to the front lines. You must stop the Quarian advance at all costs." Samuel studied the tactical displays, his brow furrowed. The Quarian ships were sleeker, faster, their technology far superior to anything the Iridians possessed. In a straight fight, they didn't stand a chance. "We can't beat them head-on," Samuel said, "but maybe we don't have to." He zoomed in on the Quarian flagship, a massive dreadnought bristling with weaponry. "If we can infiltrate their command ship and capture their leader, Overlord Zaxar, we might be able to force them to retreat." Cygnus' mandibles twitched. "A daring plan, but how do you propose to get aboard their ship undetected?" Samuel grinned. "Leave that to me." He gathered his team, Zarax, Theron, and a handful of his most trusted Iridian warriors, and outlined his plan. They would use a combination of human infiltration tactics and Iridian cloaking tech to slip past the Quarian defenses and board the flagship. As they approached the enemy fleet, Samuel's ship shimmered and vanished from view, the cloaking device rendering them invisible. They drifted closer, undetected, until they reached the flagship's hull. Zarax hacked the airlock controls, and they slipped inside. The corridors of the Quarian ship were dark and alien, lit by pulsing red lights. Samuel and his team moved silently, taking out sentries with quick, brutal efficiency. They fought their way deeper into the ship, towards the Overlord's chambers. When they burst into Zaxar's sanctum, the Quarian leader was waiting for them, a cruel smile on his face. "You dare to challenge me, human?" he snarled, drawing a wicked-looking energy blade. Samuel stepped forward, his own weapon humming to life. Someone has to. They clashed in a whirlwind of sparks and flashing steel. Samuel's human reflexes and training matched against Zaxar's alien strength and speed. The battle was fierce, both combatants landing blows that would have felled lesser warriors. But in the end, Samuel's skill and determination won out. He disarmed Zaxar with a clever feint and pressed his blade to the Overlord's throat. "Call off your fleet," he growled, "or I'll end this here and now." Zaxar, seeing the resolve in Samuel's eyes, had no choice but to comply. The Quarian ships turned and fled, their invasion thwarted. When Samuel returned to Iridia, he was hailed as a hero. Crowds cheered his name, and Emperor Cygnus showered him with praise and honors. The Emperor came to rely on Samuel's strategic brilliance more and more, seeking his counsel on every military matter. But even as Samuel's influence grew, he could sense a change in Cygnus. The Emperor grew paranoid, suspicious of Samuel's popularity and the loyalty he commanded among the Iridian warriors. Whispers began to circulate, rumors of the Emperor's displeasure, of his desire to see Samuel's power checked. All the while, Samuel continued his clandestine work with the rebellion, funneling information and resources to Zarax and Theron. They were close now, so close to being ready to strike against Cygnus and his regime. But a new revelation threatened to upend everything. In his investigation, Samuel discovered a terrifying truth. The Quarians had not been acting alone. They were but pawns manipulated by an ancient and malevolent force known as the Void Reapers. These enigmatic beings sought nothing less than the total annihilation of all life in the galaxy. As Samuel grappled with this new knowledge, he knew that the coming days would be the most crucial of his life. The fate of not just humanity, but of every species in the galaxy, hung in the balance, and he would need to navigate a treacherous web of alliances, betrayals, and hidden agendas, if any of them were to survive the oncoming storm. As the revelation of the Void Reaper's existence weighed heavily on Samuel's mind, he delved deeper into the ancient records of the Iridian Empire, searching for any clues that might aid in their defeat. His investigation led him to a remote, desolate planet where an ancient Iridian temple was said to hold secrets long forgotten. Samuel stepped into the temple's crumbling entrance, his footsteps echoing in the eerie silence. Dust motes danced in the thin beams of light that pierced through the cracks in the walls. He navigated the labyrinthine corridors, his instincts guiding him deeper into the heart of the structure. At last, he reached a hidden chamber, its walls adorned with intricate carvings and glyphs. In the center of the room, a pedestal stood, holding a small, pulsing artifact. The Nexus Cipher, the inscriptions called it, a key to unlocking an ancient weapon capable of destroying the Void Reapers. Samuel grasped the artifact, feeling its power thrumming beneath his fingers. He knew he could not trust Emperor Cygnus with such a potent device, nor could he allow it to fall into the hands of the Void Reapers. There was only one person he could entrust with the Nexus Cipher, Zarax. "Zarax, I need you to take this," Samuel said, pressing the artifact into the Iridian engineer's hands. "Decipher its secrets, find the location of the ancient weapon. It may be our only hope against the Void Reapers." Zarax nodded solemnly, understanding the gravity of the task before him. But their plans were soon thrown into disarray. Emperor Cygnus's spies had tracked Samuel's movements, reporting his activities at the temple. The Emperor, consumed by paranoia and suspicion, ordered the arrest of Samuel and his allies, tasking the ruthless Commander Zephix with their capture. Samuel, Theron, and a handful of rebel fighters barely managed to evade Zephix's forces, fleeing to a hidden base on the Iridian moon of Zephyra. There they regrouped with Zarax, who had already begun working on deciphering the Nexus Cipher. "I've made progress," Zarax said, his voice tinged with excitement. "The cipher speaks of a weapon hidden in the—" His words were cut short by the blaring of alarms. Commander Zephix had tracked them down, and his forces were launching an all-out assault on the rebel base. Explosions rocked the compound as Samuel and his allies scrambled to defend their position. Plasma bolts seared the air, and the cries of the wounded mingled with the roar of battle. Samuel fought alongside Theron, their weapons blazing as they cut down wave after wave of Zephix's soldiers. But the enemy's numbers were too great. The rebels were being overwhelmed, pushed back into the heart of the base. Samuel saw Theron fall, his body riddled with plasma burns. He rushed to his friend's side, cradling him in his arms. "Go," Theron gasped, his life fading. "Get Zarax out, protect the Nexus Cipher." With a heavy heart, Samuel left Theron behind, fighting his way to Zarax's position. He found the engineer pinned down by enemy fire, clutching the artifact to his chest. "We have to go now," Samuel shouted over the chaos. He provided cover fire as Zarax made a break for the escape pods. Samuel followed close behind, his heart pounding in his chest. They barely made it inside before Zephix's soldiers stormed the hangar. As their pod jettisoned away from the besieged base, Samuel watched the flames consume the place where Theron had fallen. Grief and rage warred within him, tempered only by the steely determination to honor his friend's sacrifice. The Nexus Cipher was safe for now, but the fight against the Void Reapers and against Emperor Cygnus's tyranny was far from over. With the rebel base in flames and Zarax fled with the Nexus Cipher, Samuel gathered the battered remnants of his rebel force. They piled into battered transports, still trading plasma fire with Zephix's soldiers as they blasted off from Zephora's blood-soaked surface. Samuel's mind raced, trying to formulate a plan. "Set course for the Quarian homeworld," he ordered the pilot, a grizzled Iridian veteran named Raxus. "It's time for some unlikely allies." Raxus' compound eyes widened. "The Quarians? Are you mad? They'll blast us out of the sky." "We have to try," Samuel said grimly. "The Iridians are too powerful. We need help to take them down." The journey through hyperspace was tense, everyone on edge expecting to be instantly annihilated upon arrival. But when they dropped out of light speed above the Quarian capital, no plasma rained down on them. Samuel hailed the palace. "This is Commander Samuel Taylor of the Iridian Rebellion. I request an audience with Overlord Zaxir." A long pause, then a voice cold and imperious. "Land in Hangar Z9. Any deviation and you will be destroyed." Samuel set the transport down warily, Raxus and the others fingering their weapons. A contingent of Quarian guards surrounded them as they disembarked, leading them into the palace at blaster point. In the throne room, Overlord Zaxir reclined on his obsidian seat, regarding Samuel with glittering orange eyes. "You have gall, human, coming here after killing my brother." "Your brother was a tyrant," Samuel said. "Like the Iridians. I'm here to propose an alliance." Zaxir leaned forward. "And why should I ally with rebels and anarchists?" Samuel held up a data chip. "Because we have the key to defeating the Void Reapers, the Nexus cipher. It can activate a weapon to destroy them, but we need your ships and soldiers to assault the Iridian capital." Zaxir stroked his scaled chin. "This cipher could also secure Quarian dominance once the Void Reapers and Iridians are dealt with. Very well, human, you have your alliance. For now." As the Quarian warships made ready to strike at Zephyrus, Samuel received an encrypted message from Zarax. The Nexus cipher had revealed the location of the ancient weapon, the Celestial Forge, lost for millennia, and the key to activating it. Zarax sent the data to Samuel as the Rebel and Quarian fleets dropped out of hyperspace above Zephyrus. Plasma streaked between the ships and orbital defense platforms, lighting space with silent fire. Dropships descended on the capital, disgorging soldiers into the streets. But as Samuel led a charge toward the palace, an awful sound filled the air, a mind-splitting screech that made Quarians and Iridians alike clutch their heads in agony. A devastating new weapon from Cygnus's scientists, a mind control device. Rebel Iridians and Quarians turned on their allies, eyes blank, puppets controlled by the Emperor. Samuel and Zaxir fought through the chaos, putting down their mind-warped comrades with ruthless efficiency. They carved a path to the palace, Samuel's chainsword cutting through chitin and flesh, Zaxir's plasma claws flashing. In the throne room, Emperor Cygnus waited, flanked by the sinister forms of Void Reapers. He smiled, a ghastly Iridian grin. "You're too late, Samuel. I have seen the truth. Only by serving the Void can the Iridian species survive. Join me, and humanity will also endure. Resist, and watch your species burn with the rest of the galaxy." Samuel raised his chainsword, the teeth humming to life. "I'll never join you. I'll never stop fighting." Cygnus sighed, his compound eyes cold. "So be it." The Void Reapers surged forward, tentacles lashing as Samuel and Zaxir charged to meet them. The fate of the galaxy hung in the balance as human, Quarian, and Iridian clashed in the Emperor's hall, a desperate struggle against the all-consuming dark. Samuel spat at Cygnus's feet, his eyes blazing with defiance. "I'll never join you or your Void Reaper masters. I'll fight you to my last breath." Cygnus chittered, mandibles clicking. "Then you will die, human, and your species with you." The Emperor lunged, obsidian claws slashing. Samuel parried with his chainsword, teeth sparking against chitin. They traded blows in a whirlwind of slashing talons and whirring adamantium, evenly matched in speed and ferocity. Across the throne room, Zaxir grappled with the mind-controlled guards, his plasma claws ripping through their armor. The Quarian Lord fought with brutal efficiency, but the sheer number of puppeted soldiers threatened to overwhelm him. Samuel saw an opening, ducking under Cygnus' swipe to land a solid blow on the Emperor's chestplate. The chainsword shrieked as it chewed through the hardened chitin, sparks flying. Cygnus reeled back, ichor spurting from the wound. The Emperor's compound eyes narrowed, and he reached for a device on his belt, the mind control apparatus. But Samuel was faster. He lunged forward, chainsword screeching, and cleaved the device in two. A pulse of energy rippled out from the shattered machine. The mind-controlled Iridians and Quarians stumbled, blinking as if waking from a dream. Free from Cygnus's thrall, they turned on their former master, blasters and blades at the ready. Cygnus, seeing the tide turning against him, turned to flee. He scuttled towards a hidden lift, mandibles clicking in frustration. Samuel gave chase, boots pounding on the obsidian floor. The lift carried them to the top of the palace's highest tower, wind whipping at their faces. Cygnus turned to face Samuel, a sneer on his insectoid features. "You're too late, human," he gloated. "The Void Reapers are already here, a fleet beyond imagining poised to devour this galaxy. You've lost." Samuel raised his chainsword, teeth spinning. "Not while I still draw breath." He charged, a battle cry on his lips. Cygnus met him head-on, claws slashing. They clashed in a storm of sparks and shrieks of tortured metal, the fate of the galaxy balanced on their blades. With a final desperate lunge, Samuel drove his chainsword through Cygnus's chest. The Emperor convulsed, ichor spurting, then collapsed in a twitching heap. But even as he fell, Cygnus laughed, a rattling, hideous sound. "You've killed me, human, but I'll take you with me." His claw darted to a control panel, inputting a code. Alarms blared, and a computerized voice echoed through the palace. Self-destruct sequence initiated. Samuel turned to run, but Cygnus lashed out, talons snagging his leg. The human stumbled, the Emperor's weight dragging him down. The tower shook as explosions ripped through the lower levels, fire and debris racing upwards. Suddenly, a plasma bolt seared through the air, severing Cygnus's arm at the elbow. Zaxir stood in the lift, his weapon smoking. "Go!" the Quarian shouted. "Get our forces out of here. I'll hold him off." Samuel hesitated for only a moment before nodding grimly. He sprinted for the lift, the heat of the encroaching flames licking at his back. Zaxir stepped out to face Cygnus, plasma claws flickering to life. As the lift descended, Samuel saw the two aliens clash, Quarian against Iridian, locked in mortal combat as the palace crumbled around them. Then the doors slid shut, and he saw no more. Samuel burst from the palace gates, shouting for a retreat. The rebel Iridians and Quarians disengaged from the last loyalist forces, falling back to their ships as the capital burned. Explosions rocked the ground, the once mighty palace collapsing in on itself in a plume of fire and dust. In the chaos of the evacuation, a rebel runner sprinted up to Samuel, thrusting a holopad into his hands. "Urgent message from Zarax, sir." Samuel read quickly, his heart pounding. The Nexus cipher had given up its secrets. The Celestial Forge, an ancient weapons facility, lost for millennia, and with it, a devastating weapon, the Cosmic Hammer, capable of turning back even the Void Reaper horde. Samuel looked up at the sky where distant shapes were descending through the clouds. The vanguard of the Void Reaper fleet. There was no time to lose. "Set course for the Celestial Forge," he ordered, his voice hard as steel. "We have a weapon to claim and a galaxy to save." As the rebel fleet blasted into the stars, the Void Reapers descended on Zephyrus, devouring all in their path. The war had only just begun, and the fate of every species hung in the balance. In the Celestial Forge's ancient halls, Samuel and Zarax raced against time, following the Nexus cipher's clues through crumbling corridors and past long-dead guardians. Traps and trials lay at every turn, the facility's builders having spared no effort to protect their ultimate creation. But Samuel's quick wits and Zarax's technical brilliance saw them through, until at last they stood in the Cosmic Hammer's vault. The weapon was a marvel of ancient engineering, a colossal construct of gleaming metal and pulsing energy conduits. Its power, Zarax said, was unimaginable, the concentrated might of a supernova harnessed and directed. As Samuel reached out to claim the hammer's controls, a chill ran down his spine. The responsibility was staggering, the potential for destruction terrifying. But with the Void Reapers carving a path of annihilation through the galaxy, there was no choice. He had to wield this power, had to use it to save everything he held dear. Samuel's fingers closed around the activation lever. He took a deep breath, steeling himself for what was to come. The hammer hummed to life, ancient mechanisms stirring, energy building to a crescendo. The power of the cosmos itself, bent to the will of one human soldier. It was time to turn the tide, to bring the fight to the Void Reapers. Samuel would wield the cosmic hammer like a modern-day god of war, raining destruction on the devourers of worlds. And if he fell in the process, so be it. He would gladly give his life to see the galaxy freed from the Void Reaper threat. For he was Samuel Taylor, champion of the Iridian Rebellion, wielder of the Nexus cipher, and he would not rest until the stars were safe once more. As Samuel's fingers closed around the cosmic hammer's activation lever, the ancient weapon hummed to life, arcane mechanisms stirring from their long slumber. Energy pulsed through its conduits, building to a crescendo of raw power waiting to be unleashed. Samuel could feel the weight of the galaxy's fate resting on his shoulders. But as the hammer's systems came online, alarms blared through the Celestial Forge's halls. Zarax rushed to the control panel, his compound eyes widening in dismay. "The weapon requires an immense power source," he said, mandibles clicking in agitation. "More than anything we have available." Samuel joined him at the panel, scanning the readouts. "What about that neutron star nearby? Could we harness its energy?" Zarax chittered thoughtfully. "Possibly, but we'd need a massive collector array and a series of relays to channel the power safely. And we're running out of time." Samuel slammed his fist on the console. "Then that's what we'll do. We've come too far to fail now." They gathered the remaining Iridian and Quarian engineers, dividing them into teams to tackle the monumental task. Some set to work constructing the collector array, a vast network of panels and conduits designed to withstand the neutron star's intense radiation. Others focused on the relay system, carefully calibrating each component to ensure a stable energy flow. As they labored, reports from the battle above streamed in, each more dire than the last. The Void Reaper fleet tore through the Allied forces, their advanced ships shrugging off attacks and retaliating with devastating precision. The fleet commander's voice crackled over the comms, strained and desperate. "We can't hold them much longer. Whatever you're doing down there, you need to do it fast." In a final desperate gambit, the commander ordered a series of kamikaze attacks. Smaller ships, piloted by brave volunteers, hurled themselves at the Void Reaper dreadnoughts, sacrificing themselves to create openings for the main fleet to exploit. Explosions lit the void as the kamikaze ships detonated, the Allies surging forward in their wake to strike at the momentarily vulnerable Void Reapers. Back in the Celestial Forge, Samuel and Zarax worked feverishly to complete the collector array and relays. Engineers swarmed over the structures, making final adjustments and connections. At last, the system was ready. Samuel threw the switch, and energy from the neutron star surged into the cosmic hammer, its mechanisms thrumming with barely contained power. But a new problem arose. The readouts showed the neutron star's energy was too chaotic, its output fluctuating wildly. "The weapon can't handle this unstable power flow," Zarax said, his voice tight. "Someone will need to manually regulate the energy at the collector site." Samuel saw the unspoken truth in Zarax's eyes. Whoever took on that task would be exposed to lethal levels of radiation. They would likely not survive. He stepped forward, squaring his shoulders. "I'll do it." "Samuel, no," Zarax protested. "It's too dangerous, even for a human." Samuel cut him off with a sharp gesture. "We don't have a choice. You said it yourself, my physiology might give me a slight advantage." He managed a tight smile. "Besides, I'm just a soldier. You're the genius who built this thing. The galaxy needs you more than it needs me." Zarax looked like he wanted to argue, but the weight of Samuel's words sank in. He clasped the human's arm, his grip firm. "Your sacrifice will not be forgotten." Samuel nodded, then turned and sprinted towards the collector array, his heart pounding in his chest. The fate of the galaxy hung by a thread, and he was the only one who could tip the balance. He would give his life gladly to see the Void Reapers defeated and the allied species saved. He just hoped it would be enough. Just as Samuel steeled himself to face the neutron star's lethal radiation, a shimmering portal opened behind him. He whirled, chainsword raised, but lowered it in shock as a familiar figure stepped through. "Zaxar, we thought you died on the flagship." The Quarian Lord shook his head. "Nearly, but I survived and I've been tracking your progress." He held out a gleaming device, all sleek lines and pulsing energy. "The Quarians have been developing this, an energy shield to withstand extreme conditions, like a neutron star's radiation." Hope kindled in Samuel's chest as Zarax scuttled over, compound eyes wide. Together the three worked feverishly to integrate the Quarian shield into Samuel's armor, rewiring circuits and reinforcing plates. When they finished, Samuel's suit thrummed with power, a shimmering barrier flickering around him. "It'll hold," Zaxar said, "but not forever. You need to move quickly." Samuel nodded grimly and set out across the blasted landscape toward the neutron star's baleful glow. The energy collector loomed ahead, a spire of ancient technology silhouetted against the star's glare. Samuel stepped into the control chamber, the shield shimmering around him. He gripped the regulator levers, took a deep breath and began to channel the star's fury. Energy surged through the relays, raw power that made his teeth ache and his bones shake. In the chamber below, the cosmic hammer began to hum with building charge. But the power spike did not go unnoticed. In the void above, the Void Reaper fleet turned ponderously, their dread attention drawn to the celestial forge. A portion of their ships detached, hurtling toward the ancient station with malevolent purpose. In the forge's command center, alarms blared. Zarax chittered in alarm as the sensor displays lit up with incoming hostiles. Zaxar bared his teeth in a snarl. "They know what we're attempting. They mean to stop us." Zarax drew himself up, mandibles set. "Then we buy Samuel the time he needs." The two aliens rallied the remaining Iridian and Quarian defenders, hastily erecting barricades and manning gun emplacements. The Void Reapers struck like a dark tide, disgorging hordes of chitinous horrors and eldritch war constructs. The Allied forces met them head-on, plasma and lasfire searing the air. In the control chamber, Samuel gritted his teeth as the neutron star's energy battered at his shield. Warnings flashed across his HUD as the barrier's integrity began to drop. He could feel the heat sinking into his bones, the radiation clawing at his cells. But he held on, pouring every ounce of his will into keeping the energy flow stable. The cosmic hammer's charge climbed higher, power building to a star-bright crescendo. Samuel's vision blurred, his breath coming in ragged gasps. The shield flickered, on the verge of collapse. With a final Herculean effort, Samuel wrenched the power regulators into alignment. The cosmic hammer roared to full charge, ancient mechanisms thrumming with godlike power. Samuel staggered to the targeting console, his limbs leaden. With fading strength, he aimed the weapon at the heart of the Void Reaper fleet. And fired. The cosmic hammer unleashed a lance of pure world-ending energy, a beam of staggering power that split the void asunder. It smote the Void Reaper fleet like the wrath of an angry god, tearing through their ships like so much tissue paper. Dreadnoughts shattered, battle cruisers splintered, eldritch horrors burned to ash in the cosmic fire. The beam cut a swath of utter destruction through the Void Reaper ranks, scattering their fleet and sowing chaos in its wake. The surviving ships reeled away, their hive mind stunned by the sheer magnitude of the blow. For a moment, the tide of battle turned, the Void Reapers thrown into disarray by the cosmic hammer's might. But Samuel had no time to savor the victory. As the hammer's energy dissipated, his shield finally gave out in a crackle of sparks. He felt the neutron star's radiation slam into him like a physical blow, searing through his armor and into his flesh. He screamed, agony tearing at every nerve as the deadly energy ravaged his body. Darkness closed in, and Samuel felt himself falling. His last thought before unconsciousness claimed him was a desperate hope that his sacrifice had not been in vain, that the Allies could seize the chance he had bought them to turn the battle's tide. Then the void took him and he knew no more. The cosmic hammer's blast tore through the void, a lance of pure destruction that ripped the Void Reaper fleet asunder. Ships shattered like glass, eldritch horrors vaporizing in the cosmic conflagration. The tide of battle turned in an instant, the Iridian and Quarian forces surging forward as their foe reeled. But in the neutron star's control chamber, Samuel Taylor paid the price for victory. The Quarian shield failed with a sparking flicker, the full fury of the star's radiation slamming into him. He screamed, nerves on fire, flesh searing, as the deadly energy ravaged his body. Then he crumpled, consciousness fleeing, the pain mercifully fading to black. Zarax and Zaxar found him slumped at the controls, barely breathing, his skin blistered and burned. They carried him back to the forge, shouting for medics, praying to whatever gods might listen that their friend and savior could be saved. In the forge's medbay, Iridian and Quarian doctors worked frantically, wielding advanced regenerative tech and experimental gene therapies. They immersed Samuel in bubbling Bacta tanks, pumped him full of radioactive chelators and cellular repair nanites. For days he hung between life and death, kept breathing only by the most advanced life support systems two species could devise. Meanwhile, in the void above, the war raged on. The Void Reapers regrouped, their hive mind cold with machine logic and an all-consuming need for vengeance. They threw themselves at the Iridian-Quarian lines, fearless and relentless, striving to shatter the alliance that had so decimated their forces. Zarax took command of the Iridian fleets, his brilliant tactical mind turning to the problem of the Void Reapers' implacable advance. Zaxar rallied the Quarians, their plasma lances and graviton beams slicing through the enemy's ranks. Together, they forged a battle plan, a daring pincer maneuver to trap the Void Reapers between their combined forces and crush them once and for all. The plan was bold, audacious even, but Zarax and Zaxar knew they had to seize this chance. With the Void Reapers reeling from the cosmic hammer's blast and their lines in disarray, this was the moment to strike a decisive blow. Iridian and Quarian ships moved in perfect synchronicity, a ballet of destruction, as the trap snapped shut. For a moment it seemed that victory was at hand. The Void Reapers' advance faltered, their ships caught in a withering crossfire. But then a new horror emerged. The Void Reaper commander, in a final desperate gambit, unleashed a swarm of self-replicating nanobots, a grey goo nightmare designed to consume all matter in their path. The nanobots spread like a plague, a tide of hungry machines that devoured ship and soldier alike. They swarmed over Iridian and Quarian hulls, eating through armor and life support, leaving only drifting husks behind. On the planets below, they consumed cities, then continents, an ever-expanding sea of destruction. Zarax and Zaxar watched in horror as their forces dwindled, the nanobots an unstoppable tide. They knew that conventional weapons were useless against this threat, that the only hope was the cosmic hammer's power. But with Samuel unconscious, they had no one to regulate the neutron star's deadly energies. They looked at each other across the command center, a moment of perfect understanding. One of them would have to take Samuel's place. One of them would have to sacrifice themselves to give the other a chance to fire the hammer. The fate of the galaxy hung on this moment, on the choice they made here and now. Zaxar stepped forward, his eyes hard with resolve. "I'll do it," he said. "I'll regulate the energy flow. You fire the hammer, Zarax. Save our people. Save everyone." Zarax started to protest, but Zaxar cut him off. "It has to be me. You're the better shot, and we both know it. Besides," he managed a grim smile, "I still owe you for that business on Zephora." Zarax clasped Zaxar's arm, a warrior's salute. "It has been an honor," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "Your sacrifice will not be forgotten." They parted, each to their appointed task, each knowing they likely would not meet again in this life. Zaxar took his place at the neutron star's control panel, the deadly energies already sizzling against the shields. Zarax manned the cosmic hammer's firing controls, his compound eyes fixed on the targeting reticle. The nanobots swarmed closer, a tsunami of certain death. Zaxar gritted his teeth and poured everything he had into the energy flow, the shields around him crackling and spitting. The cosmic hammer thrummed with power, building to a crescendo. At the last possible instant, Zarax fired. The hammer's blast seared the void, a wall of pure force that vaporized the nanobots on contact. It swept through the Void Reaper fleet like the hand of an angry god, burning, shattering, until nothing remained but drifting ash. In the neutron star's control chamber, Zaxar smiled as the energies consumed him, knowing his sacrifice had bought the galaxy another chance at survival. And in the Celestial Forge's medbay, Samuel Taylor slept on, oblivious to the price his friends had paid for victory. Zaxar stepped forward, his posture resolute. "I will regulate the neutron star's energies. The Quarian scientists have modified my body to withstand extreme radiation." Zarax's mandibles clicked in surprise. "Zaxar, are you certain the risk is necessary?" Zaxar cut him off. "We have no time. I will do this." Zarax hesitated, then nodded. "Very well. May the stars guide you." As Zaxar turned to leave, Zarax gripped his arm. "Zaxar, thank you." The Quarian lord inclined his head, then strode towards the energy collector, his steps unwavering. Zarax watched him go, a mix of gratitude and trepidation churning in his gut. "Iridians, Quarians," Zarax addressed the assembled soldiers, his voice ringing with authority. "The nanobots advance, the Void Reapers rally, but we will hold the line, for the Alliance, for the galaxy." A roar of assent rose from the gathered warriors. They took up positions, weapons primed, as the first wave of nanobots swarmed over the horizon like a silver tide. Zaxar reached the energy collector, its structure already pitted and corroded by the voracious nanobots. He stepped inside, sealing the hatch behind him. The neutron star's baleful light seared his vision, its energy crackling against his skin. He grasped the controls, feeling the power surge through him. The cosmic hammer thrummed, ancient mechanisms stirring to life, but the nanobots were relentless, eating away at the collector's foundations. Zaxar gritted his teeth, pouring every ounce of his will into stabilizing the energy flow. Sparks flew, consoles burst, but he held on, the hammer's charge climbing. Outside, Zarax and the Allied forces fought with desperate fury. Plasma bolts and graviton beams tore through the nanobot swarms, but always more came, an endless tide of hungry metal. The cosmic hammer reached full power, its core pulsing with staggering energies. But the collector was failing, its structure collapsing around Zaxar. With a final defiant roar, Zaxar aimed the hammer at the heart of the nanobot horde. He fired, a lance of pure cosmic force erupting from the ancient weapon. The beam scythed through the nanobots, vaporizing trillions in an instant. It cut a swath of annihilation through the Void Reaper fleet, ships exploding like supernovae. But the collector could take no more. It detonated in a blinding flash, a miniature sun birthing and dying in the space of a heartbeat. Zaxar, Lord of the Quarians, vanished in the maelstrom of light and heat. The nanobots, severed from their guiding intelligence, fell inert. The Void Reaper ships, their forces broken, fled into the void. Across the battlefield, Iridians and Quarians alike stared in awe at the fading afterimage of the hammer's blast. In the Celestial Forge's medbay, Samuel Taylor's eyes fluttered open. He looked up to see Zarax standing over him, the Iridian's face etched with sorrow and triumph. "We won, Samuel," Zarax said softly. "The galaxy is safe, but Zaxar—" Samuel closed his eyes, grief and gratitude warring in his heart. The price of victory had been high, but the sacrifice had not been in vain. Days later, Samuel stood atop the Celestial Forge's highest tower, the wind tugging at his hair. Iridian and Quarian ships glided past, their once hostile banners now flying side by side. A new age had dawned, an era of unity forged in the crucible of war. The scars would linger, the losses would be mourned, but together the peoples of the galaxy would heal, together they would build. Samuel gazed out at the stars, seeing not just points of light but beacons of hope. The future stretched before him, a canvas yet to be painted. and he knew, come what may, that they would face it as one. If you finished this story, please subscribe and like the video. Then leave a comment that says, "I liked the story," and I will heart every single one of them. It really helps me. Thank you for your time.